I am Sophia Adams, 32 years old, standing frozen in a pristine Manhattan gallery when my phone buzzes. The text from my brother Andrew reads, "Sold your amateur paintings for $100 each. You are welcome." My fingers hover as I type. "Thank you for letting me know." He responds immediately. "Are not you mad?" I smile slightly, knowing what he does not. Those amateur paintings he just offloaded for a few $100s. They are worth $2 million each. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about family betrayals turned unexpected victories. Art was my oxygen from the moment I could hold a crayon. Growing up in Chicago with my practical parents, I filled sketchbooks while they filled spreadsheets. My father worked as an accountant, my mother taught mathematics at the local high school. They valued equations and balance sheets, things with definitive answers and clear purposes. My passion for colors and shapes for creating something from nothing puzzled them. They were not unkind about it, just confused. "It is nice that you enjoy your little hobby," my mother would say, patting my hand while examining my latest creation with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Andrew, my younger brother by 4 years, absorbed our parents' pragmatism like a sponge. Even as a child, he organized his toys by resale value and started a neighborhood candy reselling business by age 10. While I dreamed in watercolors, he dreamed in profit margins. When college application time arrived, my parents assumed I would follow a sensible path like business or education. Their faces fell when I announced my intention to study fine arts at Pratt Institute in New York. "Art does not pay bills, Sophia," my father said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Not immediately," I agreed. "But nothing worthwhile comes easily. Our compromise, they would help with tuition if I minored in marketing. At least you will have something to fall back on," my mother reasoned. I agreed, not because I intended to use the marketing degree, but because I knew this concession would open the door to my true passion. College transformed my artistic vision. I discovered mixed media, combining traditional painting with unconventional materials, like crushed glass metal fragments and textured fabrics. My professors were divided on my technique. Some praised its innovation. Others criticized it as confused and lacking discipline. This split reaction only fueled my determination to refine my voice. The years after graduation were lean, very lean. I worked as a barista at an upscale coffee shop in Brooklyn, waking at 4 in the morning for opening shifts, then painting until midnight in my tiny apartment shared with 2 other struggling artists. My bathroom doubled as a darkroom for my photographer roommate. Our kitchen sink was perpetually stained with paint and developer fluid. Throughout these struggle years, Andrew visited occasionally, always impeccably dressed in suits that cost more than my monthly rent. He had secured a position at a financial consulting firm straight out of his business program and never failed to remind me that I could still switch to something practical. During one particularly difficult winter when heating our apartment became a luxury we could barely afford, Andrew looked around at my canvases stacked against every wall and sighed. "No one is buying these, are they?" he asked, not unkindly, just stating what he saw as obvious. "They will," I insisted. "I just have not found the right audience yet." He shook his head. "You know, there is an entry-level position in our marketing department. With your minor, you could qualify." I declined again. This became our routine, his practical offers, my stubborn refusals. 3 years ago, I had to vacate my apartment when the building was sold to developers. Between leases and desperately short on funds, I needed somewhere to store my early works, the pieces that represented my artistic evolution, but had not sold at the small gallery showings I had managed to secure. "You can keep them at my place temporarily," Andrew offered. "I have that storage room I never use." I gratefully accepted, carefully, wrapping 12 of my earliest mixed media pieces and delivering them to his spacious downtown apartment. These paintings, created during my final year at Pratt and first years struggling in New York, represented my artistic foundation, the DNA of everything I would create afterward. What I did not tell Andrew, what I did not tell anyone except my agent Lisa, was that things had finally started to change for me. Small ripples at first. A positive review in an online arts publication. An invitation to contribute to a group showing at a Chelsea gallery. Then, 6 months ago, the seismic shift renowned art collector Julian Reynolds happened to see one of my newer pieces at that group showing. Julian approached me afterward, his eyes bright with the intensity that made him famous in the art world. "Your work has something I have not seen in a decade," he told me. "Raw emotion captured in physical form. I want to see more." That conversation led to meetings with the prestigious Hartwell Gallery in Manhattan. The gallery director, Catherine Hartwell herself, reviewed my portfolio and offered what I had been working toward for 15 years, a solo exhibition. There was just one condition. Catherine wanted to show the evolution of my technique, which meant including those early works currently gathering dust in my brother Andrew's storage room. "Your early pieces show the genesis of your style," Catherine explained. "The exhibition needs to tell your complete story as an artist." I agreed, planning to retrieve the paintings from Andrew's apartment the following week. But then, Julian Reynolds came back with an even more extraordinary proposition. "I would like to purchase your entire collection," he said during a private meeting at his penthouse overlooking Central Park. "But I need to see those early works before finalizing the deal." The figure he mentioned made me dizzy. 7 figures. Enough to secure my future as an artist, to finally prove to my family that my hobby was actually my calling. "Of course," I said, trying to maintain my composure. "I can have them delivered to you next week. They are in storage at my brother's place." Julian and I scheduled a viewing for the following month, giving me plenty of time to retrieve my paintings from Andrew. I called him that evening to arrange a pickup time, but his assistant said he was traveling in Europe for business and would return in 2 weeks. No problem, I thought. There was still plenty of time before my meeting with Julian. What I did not know then was that Andrew had his own plans for my worthless art. The Hartwell Gallery always smelled like money. Not in an ostentatious way, but in that subtle manner that speaks of quality and exclusivity. Polished hardwood floors, pristine white walls, and carefully directed lighting that made even empty spaces look valuable. I was standing in what would soon be my exhibition space, discussing installation options with Catherine Hartwell, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. "Excuse me," I said, stepping aside to check the message. The text from Andrew hit me like a physical blow. "Sold your amateur paintings for $100 each. You are welcome." My vision tunneled momentarily. $100 each. The paintings Julian Reynolds was prepared to pay millions for. The cornerstone pieces for my upcoming exhibition. My hands trembled slightly, but I managed to keep my expression neutral as Catherine continued, pointing out lighting features across the room. "Sophia, what do you think about placing your largest piece here?" Catherine asked, turning toward me. "That would work beautifully," I responded automatically while typing. "Thank you for letting me know." It was all I could manage without screaming. My stomach clenched as I watched the typing indicator appear immediately. "Are not you mad? Thought you would be happy I cleared some space in my apartment. Those canvases were collecting dust for years." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Andrew's face appeared on the screen. "I should take this," I told Catherine, stepping into the gallery's empty back office. "So you got my text." Andrew sounded pleased with himself. "I know you are probably shocked, but honestly you should be thanking me. $100 each for those old paintings is pretty generous." The buyers actually seemed excited, which was weird, but I guess art people are different. I gripped the phone tightly, forcing myself to breathe slowly. "When exactly did you sell them?" I asked, my voice unnaturally calm. "Last weekend. These people called saying they saw your work somewhere and tracked you to me. I figured it was a scam at first, but they seemed legitimate. Paid cash on the spot. 12 paintings, $1,200. Not bad for stuff that was just cluttering my storage room." Each word was another nail in my coffin. My 12 foundation pieces worth millions sold for pocket change. "Did they say who they were?" I managed to ask. "Some art acquisition company. Black something. Blackstone. Yeah. Blackstone Art Acquisitions. Very professional. They even gave me business cards. I kept one somewhere. Blackstone Art Acquisitions. I had never heard of them, but that would be my first research point. Are you still there? Andrew asked. Look, I know they were your hobby paintings, but you have moved on to new stuff, right? And now you have some cash. Maybe put it towards something practical. The familiar dismissal of my art as a hobby stung especially sharply now. I have to go, I said. I am in a meeting. Sure. Real job interview, finally. That would be great news. I ended the call without responding and stood motionless in the empty office. 12 paintings. My early works. The pieces Julian Reynolds wanted to see before finalizing a multi-million-dollar purchase. The cornerstone of my exhibition at Hartwell Gallery. All gone for $100 each. The room seemed to spin slightly as the full implications hit me. My career breakthrough, my financial security, my artistic legacy, all potentially destroyed by my brother's careless actions. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. The gallery was not the place for a breakdown. I returned to Catherine with what I hoped was a convincing smile. Something has come up. Would it be possible to continue this tomorrow? Catherine agreed, and I rushed out to call Lisa, my agent. She picked up on the first ring. Julian Reynolds just confirmed the viewing date, she said excitedly. This is happening, Sophia. Lisa, my voice cracked. We have a problem. A huge problem. I explained what had happened, my words tumbling out in a panicked stream. There was silence on the other end when I finished. Your brother sold your early works without permission, she finally asked, her voice dangerously quiet. The ones Julian specifically wants to see. The ones Catherine needs for the exhibition. Yes. For $100 each. Yes. To Blackstone Art Acquisitions. You know them. Lisa's sigh was heavy. They are notorious in the industry. They specialize in identifying emerging artists, then acquiring their early works through whatever means necessary just before the artists break through. Usually they target family members who do not understand the value. But how would they know about me? About Julian's interest? The art world is small, Sophia. Word gets around. She paused. This is bad. Really bad. Without those early pieces, Julian might walk away. And Catherine definitely will not give you the exhibition without them. I leaned against a building, suddenly feeling the weight of everything I had worked for slipping away. What do we do? First, we need to find out who exactly bought your paintings and where they are now. Then we can figure out how to get them back. Lisa's voice shifted from shocked to determined. Do not tell Julian or Catherine yet. We will fix this. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I returned to my apartment, a significant upgrade from my struggling years, but still modest by New York standards. I sat on my secondhand couch, staring at the half-finished canvas on my easel. It was supposed to be the centerpiece of my exhibition, the culmination of everything I had learned and developed as an artist. Now it might never be seen. The tears I had been holding back all day finally came hot and angry. I cried for my paintings, for my career, for the years of struggle that seemed wasted now. But mostly I cried because my own brother had so little regard for my work that he had casually sold it without a second thought. When the tears finally subsided, I was left with something harder and more determined. I would not let Blackstone Art Acquisitions steal my future. I would not let my brother's dismissal of my art define its value. I would find my paintings and get them back, whatever it took. Morning light filtered through my apartment windows as I called Andrew again. This time, my voice held no trace of yesterday's shock or hurt. Just cool determination. I need the contact information for the people who bought my paintings, I said without preamble. Good morning to you too, Andrew replied, yawning. Why are you upset about the paintings after all? I thought you would be happy to get anything for them. I bit back a sharp response. Just the information, please. Names, phone numbers, addresses, everything you have. Something in my tone must have registered because Andrew's voice lost its casual edge. Sure, okay. Let me find that business card. And I think I wrote down their information somewhere. 5 minutes later, I had 3 names, addresses, and phone numbers. Michael Pearson, Elaine Turner, and Richard Cohen all associated with Blackstone Art Acquisitions. According to Andrew, they had divided the paintings between them, each taking 4 pieces. They seemed really interested in specific ones, Andrew added. They had a list with titles and everything. I thought that was weird since you usually just scribble names on the back. My stomach tightened. They had not randomly purchased my art. They had targeted specific pieces. This was a calculated move. I spent the morning researching Blackstone Art Acquisitions online. Their website was sleek and professional, describing them as specialized art investors with an eye for emerging talent. But digging deeper into art forums and industry blogs revealed a different story. Multiple posts mentioned their predatory practices, how they exploited uninformed family members or friends of artists on the verge of breakthrough. One forum post caught my eye. Blackstone bought my roommate's sculptures for $500 through his parents. 6 months later, they sold them at auction for $75,000 each. Legal but despicable. By noon, I had compiled enough information to understand what I was dealing with. Blackstone operated within legal boundaries, but exploited ethical gray areas. They researched artists attracting attention from major collectors or galleries, then acquired their early works before prices skyrocketed. I decided to confront them directly, starting with Michael Pearson, whose Manhattan office address suggested he might be the most accessible of the 3 buyers. His office occupied the 20th floor of a gleaming midtown tower. The receptionist eyed me skeptically when I requested a meeting without an appointment, but eventually ushered me into a minimalist office with a spectacular view of the city. Michael Pearson was younger than I expected, perhaps early 40s, with the polished appearance of someone who had never worried about making rent. He rose from behind his glass desk, extending his hand with practiced charm. "Miss Adams, what an unexpected pleasure. I admired your work even before acquiring some of your early pieces." His smug smile told me everything. He knew exactly what he had done. "You knew the value of those paintings when you bought them from my brother," I said, skipping any pretense of pleasantries. Pearson gestured for me to sit, seemingly amused by my directness. "Business is about information asymmetry, Miss Adams. Your brother had something of value but lacked the information to price it correctly. I had the information but needed the asset. A mutually beneficial transaction occurred." "Mutually beneficial," I repeated incredulously. "You exploited my brother's ignorance to steal my work." "Steal is a strong word for a legal purchase." Pearson leaned back in his chair. "Your brother had possession of the paintings and agreed to sell them. I paid the asking price. Nothing illegal occurred." "Where are my paintings now?" Pearson smiled thinly. "My 4 are being prepared for auction next month. Christie's actually. They are quite excited about it, especially Fractured Memories No. 3. The pre-auction estimate is quite impressive for an emerging artist." My breath caught. Fractured Memories No. 3 was one of my most significant early pieces. A mixed media exploration of my parents' divorce that had taken months to complete. "How much?" I asked quietly. The estimate, $1.8 million. Of course it could go higher with the right bidders in the room. He studied my expression with obvious satisfaction. "You seem surprised. Surely you knew your work had value." "Julian Reynolds certainly thinks so." The casual mention of Julian confirmed my suspicions. Blackstone had inside information about Julian's interest in my work. "I want my paintings back," I stated flatly. Pearson laughed. "That is not how this works, Miss Adams. The transaction was legal. The paintings are mine to sell, but I will make sure you receive an invitation to the auction. You can see your early work achieve the recognition it deserves, even if you will not see the financial benefits." I left his office seething but determined. 1 down, 2 to go. Elaine Turner proved more elusive. Her address led to a luxury apartment building where the doorman refused to confirm if she was a resident. My calls went straight to voicemail. After several attempts, I received a terse email. "Miss Adams, I understand your concern, but our transaction was legal and binding. Please direct any further communications through my attorney." Attached was the business card of a high-powered art lawyer whose hourly rate probably exceeded what Andrew had received for all 12 paintings. My final lead was Richard Cohen. His Brooklyn address surprised me, being considerably less upscale than the others. The converted warehouse building housed artists' studios and small galleries, not the luxury I expected from someone associated with Blackstone. Cohen himself was equally surprising. Older, perhaps 60s, with paint-stained hands and the weathered look of a working artist. His studio was cluttered with canvases and sculptures, a chaotic creative space I immediately recognized and felt comfortable in. "I wondered if you would find me," he said, offering me tea from a chipped mug. For what it is worth, I did not agree with how Pearson and Turner handled this. "Yet you took 4 of my paintings," I pointed out. Cohen sighed, gesturing to a wall where my 4 pieces hung prominently. "I did. I am part of Blackstone because I have an eye for emerging talent, not because I approve of their methods. When they identified you as a target, I insisted on being involved to ensure at least some of your work was treated with respect." I moved closer to my paintings, emotions swirling as I saw them displayed with obvious care. "You know, these are worth far more than what you paid." "Of course," Cohen nodded. "Your technique is revolutionary. The way you embed memory into physical form through these textured elements is unlike anything in contemporary art. These early pieces show the genesis of what will become your signature style." His genuine appreciation for my work was disarming. If you understand their value, both artistic and financial, why participate in this scheme? Cohen was quiet for a moment. "Because if I had, not all 12 would have gone to people like Pearson and Turner, who see only dollar signs." He hesitated. "I cannot speak for the others, but I would consider returning your pieces for what I paid, plus a reasonable commission. Not because I am afraid of legal consequences, but because artists should benefit from their own work." His offer was the first glimmer of hope since this nightmare began. "Thank you. I will definitely consider that." Before leaving, I asked, "How did Blackstone know about Julian Reynolds' interest in my work?" Cohen looked uncomfortable. "Blackstone has informants everywhere. Galleries, auction houses, even catering staff at exclusive events. Someone overheard something they should not have." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by notes and research. My laptop screen glowed with auction listings, and there it was. Fractured Memories No. 3 listed for the upcoming contemporary art auction at Christie's, estimated value $1.8 to $2.2 million. The painting I had poured my heart into that had lived in my brother's storage room that he had sold for $100, was now being prepared for auction with a multi-million-dollar estimate. I called Lisa with everything I had learned. "Richard Cohen might be our way in," she said after I recounted my conversations. "But we need to move quickly, especially with the Christie's auction approaching. I think it is time to consult an art lawyer." "I cannot afford an art lawyer," I reminded her. Actually, Lisa's voice held a note of optimism. "I talked to Julian Reynolds today. I did not mention the situation specifically, but I asked hypothetically what he would do if someone acquired artwork he was interested in through questionable means. And," he said, and I quote, "I would bring the full force of my resources to correct the situation. I think if we tell him what happened, he might help. He is still very interested in your work, Sophia." For the first time since receiving Andrew's text, I felt a flutter of hope. With Julian's backing and at least one sympathetic buyer in Richard Cohen, maybe I could recover my paintings before they disappeared into private collections or anonymous auction purchases. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. "Hey, those art people called again asking if you had any more early pieces for sale. Do you? Could be easy money?" I stared at the message, torn between fury and disbelief at his continued cluelessness. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow, I would make him understand exactly what he had done. Andrew's apartment was everything mine was not. Spacious, impeccably decorated in that soulless luxury style that graces the pages of high-end catalogs with not a single item out of place. No evidence of creative chaos, no paint splatters or half-finished projects, just pristine surfaces and expensive furniture that looked barely used. He greeted me at the door in pressed chinos and a casual button-down that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Hey sis, did not expect to see you today. Want some coffee? Just got this amazing single origin from Ethiopia." I followed him to his gleaming kitchen, clutching my laptop bag containing all my research on Blackstone art acquisitions and the auction listings. "So what brings you by?" he asked, operating his complicated espresso machine with practiced ease. "If it is about those people wanting more paintings, I told them I would check with you first this time." He laughed lightly. "Learned my lesson there. Andrew," I said quietly, "we need to talk about what you did." He turned coffee, forgotten his expression, shifting to defensive. "Come on, Sophia. I did you a favor. Those paintings were collecting dust in my storage room for years. You never asked about them, never seemed to care about them, and I got you more than fair market value. $100 each for amateur art is pretty generous." I unzipped my laptop bag. "I need to show you something." We moved to his living room where I opened my computer and navigated to the Christie's auction site. "This is one of my paintings that you sold. The one titled Fractured Memories No. 3. Andrew leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Yeah, that looks like one of them." "So what?" "Look at the estimated auction price." His eyes widened as he read the listing. $1.8 to $2.2 million. That cannot be right. That has to be a mistake. "It is not a mistake," I said, watching his face as reality began to dawn. "That painting, the one you sold for $100, is expected to sell for around $2 million at auction next month." Andrew shook his head in disbelief, grabbing the laptop and scrolling through the listing details. "This is your painting. Your actual painting. The one with all the weird textured stuff and broken mirror pieces. Yes, the same one that was in your storage room. The same one you sold without asking me." His face drained of color. "But why it is just. I mean, you made it years ago in your tiny apartment. How can it possibly be worth millions now?" "Because I am good at what I do, Andrew. Because what you dismissed as a hobby is actually my profession, my calling. Because art experts and collectors recognize the value of my work, even if my own family never did." He set the laptop down carefully as if it might explode. "Sophia, I had no idea. You have to believe me. If I had known." "You would have asked for more money," I cut in sharply. "No," he stood up, pacing now. "I never would have sold them at all. I am not a monster. I would never intentionally hurt you like that." I watched him process the magnitude of what he had done, his confident demeanor crumbling with each pass across the room. "Why did not you tell me your art was valuable?" he finally asked, his voice small. "Would you have believed me if I countered? You have spent years calling my art a hobby, suggesting real jobs. Acting like my career choice was some phase I needed to outgrow. When exactly should I have mentioned that collectors were interested in my work? When you were explaining how I could still switch to marketing, or when you were telling me how your bonus could pay for business school for me?" Andrew sank back onto the couch, running his hands through his hair. "I really messed up, did not I?" "Yes, you did." He was quiet for a long moment. "So what happens now? Can we get the paintings back?" I explained everything I had learned about Blackstone, about Michael Pearson's smugness, Elaine Turner's legal threats, and Richard Cohen's potential willingness to return my works. "But the auction is in 3 weeks," I concluded. "Even if we can convince Cohen to return his 4, that still leaves 8 paintings in the hands of people who have no intention of giving them back." Andrew's expression shifted from shock to determination. "This is my fault. I will fix it." "How they made a legal purchase. You had possession of the paintings and agreed to sell them." "Because I did not know their value," Andrew argued. "There must be legal protections against that kind of exploitation. And I never told them I owned the paintings. If they asked, I said they were my sister's works that I was storing." A new thought struck me. Did they specifically ask if you had the authority to sell them? Andrew frowned, thinking back. Number? They just asked if I was willing to sell, and I assumed. I just thought since they were in my apartment for so long. So you never explicitly claimed ownership or the right to sell them, I pressed. Number, I guess I did not. Hope flickered in his eyes. Does that help us? It might. I made a note to mention this to any lawyer we consulted. Andrew stood again, his business mindset visibly clicking into place. We need a strategy. Legal options, negotiation tactics, leverage points. These Blackstone people are predators, but every predator has vulnerabilities. For the first time since this began, I felt like my brother and I were on the same team. First, I need you to understand something, Andrew. This is not just about money. These paintings represent the foundation of my artistic development. They are crucial for my upcoming exhibition at Hartwell Gallery and for Julian Reynolds' interest in my work. Without them, I lose opportunities that go beyond financial value. Andrew nodded slowly. I get it. Or at least I am trying to. He looked around his apartment, seeing it perhaps through new eyes. You know, when we were kids, I used to be so proud of your art. I would tell my friends my sister was going to be famous someday. You did, this was news to me. Yeah. But then we grew up, and everyone kept saying how impractical art was as a career. I guess I absorbed that. He met my eyes directly. I am sorry, Sophia. I am sorry I dismissed your passion as a hobby. And I am definitely sorry I sold your paintings. His apology was unexpected and touched something deep inside me. For all our differences, Andrew was still my brother. The same kid who had once proudly displayed my childhood drawings on his bedroom wall. You do really good work, he said softly, gesturing toward the auction listing still visible on my laptop. Not that you need my validation, obviously. The art world has already decided that. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Now let us figure out how to get my paintings back. For the next hour, we brainstormed approaches, Andrew applying his business acumen to what he now recognized as a serious professional problem. It was strange, but oddly comforting to have him fully engaged with my art career for the first time, even under these circumstances. We should start with legal options, he decided, pulling out his phone. I know some good lawyers through my firm. Not art specialists, but they can refer us to someone. By the time I left Andrew's apartment, we had the beginnings of a plan, and more importantly, a shared commitment to resolving this situation. The brother who had caused this crisis was now determined to help fix it. As I waited for the elevator, Andrew called after me, I really am sorry, Sophia. I know, I said. Just help me get my paintings back. I will, whatever it takes. Patricia Martinez's law office reflected her reputation as one of New York's premier art attorneys. Original works by recognizable artists adorned the walls, and her credentials from prestigious universities and high-profile cases filled one entire bookshelf. Andrew had pulled strings through his firm's legal department to get us this emergency consultation, and now we sat across from her explaining our situation. Let me make sure I understand, Patricia said when we finished. Your brother stored your paintings but never legally owned them. He sold them to Blackstone Art Acquisitions without explicit authority to do so. One painting is now listed for auction at Christie's with a multi-million-dollar estimate, and the others are presumably being prepared for similar sales. That is correct, I confirmed. Patricia tapped her pen thoughtfully. The good news is that your brother never claimed ownership, merely possession. In art law, that distinction matters. The bad news is that Blackstone can argue they were good faith purchasers who reasonably believed your brother had the authority to sell. What are our options? Andrew asked, his notebook already filled with questions and potential strategies. First, we send cease and desist letters to Blackstone, the individual buyers, and Christie's, asserting your ownership rights and demanding the return of the artworks. Patricia opened a folder on her desk. Second, we file for an emergency injunction to stop the auction while ownership is being determined. And if that does not work, I asked. Then we sue for conversion, which is the legal term for someone taking or selling property they do not own. She looked directly at Andrew. Your brother could face some liability here, but Blackstone would be our primary target, especially if we can prove they knew or should have known he lacked authority to sell. Andrew nodded grimly. I accept whatever consequences come my way. This is my fault. Patricia continued outlining our legal strategy, explaining the complexities of art ownership disputes and the burden of proof we would face. By the end of our 2-hour consultation, we had a clear path forward, beginning with formal letters to all parties involved. Prepare yourselves, Patricia warned as we were leaving. Blackstone has faced similar situations before and always fought aggressively. They have deep pockets and a team of lawyers on retainer. This will not be easy. She was right. The cease and desist letters triggered an immediate and hostile response. Michael Pearson's lawyer threatened a countersuit for harassment and business interference. Elaine Turner's legal team sent a 12-page response disputing every point of our claim. Only Richard Cohen responded personally, reiterating his willingness to return the paintings for his purchase price, plus a reasonable fee. Christie's response was polite but firm. Without a court order, they would proceed with the auction as scheduled. Our emergency court hearing for an injunction was set for the following week, giving us precious little time to prepare our case. Lisa worked tirelessly gathering documentation of my ownership of the paintings, including photographs, exhibition records, and statements from professors who had supervised their creation. Julian Reynolds, once informed of the situation, proved to be a powerful ally. Not only did he provide a sworn statement about his interest in purchasing my complete collection, including the disputed works, but he also connected us with additional legal resources and art world experts willing to testify about the painting's provenance and value. I despise predatory practices like Blackstone's Julian told me during a call. They exploit artists and undermine the integrity of the market. I am happy to help however I can. His support extended beyond moral and legal assistance. My offer to purchase your collection still stands, he assured me. In fact, I am willing to increase it, given the market validation from Christie's estimate. I am willing to increase it, but I would want exclusive representation rights for your work moving forward. It was a generous offer, one that would secure my financial future and artistic career. But first, we needed to recover the paintings. The day of the injunction hearing arrived with a media presence none of us had anticipated. Word had spread through the art world about the dispute, positioning it as a David versus Goliath battle between an emerging artist and a predatory acquisition company. The courtroom was tense as Patricia presented our case, methodically establishing my ownership, Andrew's lack of authority to sell, and the dubious circumstances of Blackstone's purchase. Blackstone's lead attorney, a sharp-featured woman with a reputation for ruthlessness, countered that Andrew had presented himself as having authority to sell the works, that Blackstone had no reason to doubt this authority, and that they were therefore protected as good-faith purchasers. The judge, an older man with extensive experience in property disputes, questioned both sides rigorously. Mr. Adams, he addressed. Andrew, directly, did you explicitly tell Blackstone representatives that you owned these paintings or had authority to sell them? Andrew, under oath, replied carefully. No, Your Honor. If they asked, I referred to them as my sister's paintings that I was storing. I never claimed ownership or explicit authority to sell. The Blackstone attorney pounced. But you did not tell them you lacked authority either, correct? You proceeded with the sale as if you had full rights to do so. Andrew acknowledged this point, which Patricia had prepared him for. Yes, I wrongly assumed I could sell them due to the length of time they had been in my possession. That was my mistake. After hours of testimony and legal arguments, the judge rendered his decision. While I find the circumstances of this sale troubling, I cannot conclusively determine ownership rights in an emergency hearing. Therefore, I am issuing a temporary injunction preventing the auction of Fractured Memories No. 3 and any sale of the other disputed works until ownership can be fully litigated. It was a partial victory. The auction was halted, but we were now facing a potentially lengthy legal battle to establish definitive ownership. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us with questions. Patricia fielded most of them with professional restraint, but one question came directly to me. Miss Adams, how does it feel to have your brother sell your multi-million-dollar artwork for a fraction of its value? Before I could respond, Andrew stepped forward. That question unfairly characterizes what happened. I made a terrible mistake that I deeply regret and am working to correct. My sister is an incredibly talented artist whose work deserves recognition and fair compensation. That is what this case is about. His defense touched me deeply, especially given how easily he could have avoided public association with such an embarrassing error in judgment. The media attention had an unexpected benefit. By evening, the story had gone viral in art circles and beyond, with headlines like "Artist Fights to Reclaim Stolen Legacy" and "Predatory Art Dealer Exposed." Public sentiment was overwhelmingly on our side, putting additional pressure on Blackstone. Julian Reynolds called that night. "This publicity is priceless," he said. "Blackstone thrives in shadows. Public scrutiny is their kryptonite." "What do you suggest?" I asked. "Let me make them an offer they cannot refuse," Julian proposed. "I will purchase all 12 paintings from them at a price that gives them a healthy profit, then immediately transfer ownership back to you as part of our exclusivity agreement." "Can you do that?" I was stunned by his willingness to intervene so directly. "I can and I will. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. They want profit. I want your art. You want your paintings back. Everyone gets what they want, and the lawyers can stand down." It was an elegant solution that circumvented the legal morass we were facing. With Julian's resources and reputation, it just might work. True to his word, Julian's representatives approached Blackstone the next day with his offer. Michael Pearson initially refused betting on a legal victory, but when Julian increased his offer to well above even Christie's high estimate, pure financial calculation won out. Elaine Turner followed Pearson's lead, accepting Julian's generous terms. Richard Cohen, true to his earlier statements, required only his original investment, plus a modest fee. Within 72 hours of Julian's intervention, we had written agreements for the return of all 12 paintings. The legal battle that had threatened to consume months or years was resolved in days, though at considerable cost to Julian, who waved away my expressions of gratitude. "Consider it an investment in our future partnership," he said. "These paintings are coming home to you where they belong. And soon they will be the foundation of your exhibition at Hartwell Gallery, with my full support behind you." When I told Andrew the news, his relief was palpable. "So it is really over, we won." "Julian won," I corrected him. "He basically bought them all back at premium prices. Still, your paintings are coming home. That is what matters." Andrew hesitated. "Does this mean you are forgiving me?" I considered the question. The hurt and betrayal were still fresh, but so was the memory of Andrew standing beside me in court, accepting responsibility, using his connections to help me fight. "I am working on it," I told him honestly. "You helped fix what you broke. That counts for something." He nodded, accepting this partial absolution. "What happens next with your career?" "Exhibition preparations at Hartwell Gallery. Exclusive representation agreement with Julian Reynolds. The future I was working toward before this detour." "I am proud of you," Sophia, Andrew said quietly. "I always was, even when I did not understand your choices. I just forgot that for a while." Coming from my pragmatic, numbers-oriented brother, this acknowledgement of my artistic path meant more than he could know. Despite Julian's successful intervention and the signed agreements for the return of my paintings, we still faced one final hurdle. Christie's auction was proceeding with other contemporary art pieces, and Michael Pearson had insisted that Fractured Memories No. 3 remain in the auction as planned, with proceeds now directed to Julian instead of Blackstone. "It is a matter of principle," Patricia explained when I questioned this arrangement. "Pearson wants to prove the painting's market value to justify his original purchase and show he was right about your work's worth. Julian agreed because it serves his interests too, establishing a public auction record for your art." So on a rainy Tuesday evening, I found myself seated in the elegant auction room at Christie's, flanked by Andrew and Patricia, watching as art collectors and dealers filled the space. Julian sat several rows ahead, occasionally turning to offer an encouraging smile. The auctioneer, a distinguished Englishman with impeccable diction, began the proceedings with practiced charm. I barely registered the first several lots, my attention fixed on the catalog page showing my painting scheduled as Lot 17. "Are you okay?" Andrew whispered, noticing my tension. "Not really," I admitted. "It feels surreal. People are about to bid millions for something I created in my tiny apartment while eating ramen noodles for dinner." He squeezed my hand supportively. "They are bidding millions because it is brilliant work. The value was always there even when it was in my storage room. I just did not see it." The room hushed as Lot 17 was announced. My painting appeared on the display screens, and the auctioneer began his introduction. Lot 17, Fractured Memories No. 3 by Sophia Adams, mixed media on canvas created in 2019. This important early work by the emerging contemporary artist shows her revolutionary technique, combining traditional media with textured elements. "We will start the bidding at $800,000. I held my breath as a paddle raised immediately, then another, and another. $900,000. 1 million. 1,100,000. The bids climbed steadily, each increment representing more money than I had earned in my entire artistic career. I spotted Michael Pearson near the front, watching with a calculating expression as the value of what he had purchased for $100 soared. 1,800,000. The auctioneer acknowledged a new bidder in the back. 2 million. A woman near the middle raised her paddle. 2,200,000. The back bidder again. 2,500,000. A new voice from someone on the phone with a Christie's representative. My palms were sweating as the bidding continued, eventually settling into a rhythm between the phone bidder and a distinguished older gentleman near the front whom I did not recognize. $3 million, the gentleman offered calmly. The room buzzed with excitement. We had blown past the high estimate. 3,200,000, countered the phone bidder. After a brief pause, the gentleman shook his head, slightly declining to continue. 3,200,000, going once, going twice. The auctioneer surveyed the room one final time. Sold to the telephone bidder for $3,200,000. Applause rippled through the audience. I sat frozen, trying to process what had just happened. My painting, my expression of personal pain and recovery, had just sold for $3.2 million. The validation was overwhelming. As we exited the auction room afterward, I noticed Michael Pearson hovering near the door, clearly waiting for us. "Congratulations, Miss Adams," he said smoothly. "Quite an impressive result. Perhaps I should thank your brother for the opportunity to be part of your artistic journey." Before I could respond with the scathing comment forming on my lips, a voice behind us interrupted. "Mr. Pearson, I believe our business is concluded." Julian Reynolds appeared, flanked by his assistant and a security guard. "The painting will be delivered to my gallery tomorrow as agreed." Pearson's smile tightened. "Of course, Mr. Reynolds. Always a pleasure doing business with you." As Pearson retreated, Julian turned to me. "There is someone I would like you to meet, Sophia. The buyer of your painting." He led us to a private room where a striking woman in her 60s waited, exuding the quiet confidence of old money and refined taste. "Sophia Adams, meet Eleanor Harrington," Julian introduced us. "She is the anonymous telephone bidder who purchased your work tonight." I extended my hand, somewhat awestruck. Eleanor Harrington was a legendary collector whose acquisitions inevitably appreciated in value. "Your painting speaks to me," Eleanor said, clasping my hand warmly. "The way you embedded memory and emotion into physical form is extraordinary. I knew I had to have it the moment Julian showed me images of your work." "Thank you," I managed. "It means a great deal to have someone like you appreciate my art." Eleanor smiled. "Julian has told me about the unfortunate circumstances surrounding these paintings. Rest assured, Fractured Memories No. 3 will be well cared for in my collection. And I would be very interested in acquiring future works directly from you without the drama." After she departed, Julian revealed the final part of his plan. Eleanor is a longtime client and friend. When I explained the situation, she agreed to purchase the painting at auction, then loan it back to us for your Hartwell exhibition. After that, it will join her collection, but with a formal agreement that it must be made available for any retrospective of your work in the future. It was an elegant solution that served everyone's interests while ensuring my artistic legacy remained intact. Outside, Christie's, a small group of reporters had gathered, alerted to the record-breaking price for an emerging artist. Julian handled most questions with diplomatic skill, but when asked about Blackstone's role, he responded with carefully measured words. Tonight's result validates what legitimate art experts already knew about Sophia Adams' work. Unfortunately, some entities in the art world prefer exploitation to proper recognition and compensation of artists. This situation highlights the need for greater protection of artists' rights and ethical standards in art acquisition. The resulting media coverage extended far beyond art publications, bringing attention not just to my work but to the predatory practices that had nearly derailed my career. Several other artists came forward with similar stories about Blackstone creating a wave of scrutiny that would ultimately transform their business practices. As Andrew and I shared a celebratory dinner that night, he raised his glass with genuine pride. To my incredibly talented sister, whose hobby just sold for $3.2 million. I clinked my glass against his. And to brothers who mess up but then help fix things. He smiled ruefully. Next time you have multi-million-dollar paintings that need storage, maybe leave me a note about their value. Next time I promised I will just get my own storage unit. 1 year later, I stood in the center of the Hartwell Gallery surrounded by my artwork spanning the past 5 years. The lighting was perfect, highlighting the textured elements that had become my signature technique. Every piece told part of my story, from the struggling years to my recent creative explosion. And at the heart of the exhibition were the 12 early works that had nearly been lost forever. 5 minutes until opening, Catherine Hartwell announced, adjusting a spotlight slightly. "Are you ready for this, Sophia? We are expecting record attendance." I nodded, feeling a mix of nerves and exhilaration. This solo exhibition represented everything I had worked toward since first picking up a paintbrush as a child. The journey had been far more dramatic than I ever anticipated, but perhaps that was fitting for an artist whose work explored emotional transformation through physical form. Andrew arrived early, impeccably dressed in a suit that now seemed less a symbol of corporate conformity and more a gesture of respect for the occasion. Since the auction showdown, he had undergone his own transformation, developing a genuine appreciation for art, and more surprisingly, a talent for the business side of the art world. "The gallery looks amazing," he said, surveying the space. "Julian mentioned collectors are flying in from Europe and Asia, specifically for this opening." "It still does not feel real," I admitted. "Sometimes I expect to wake up back in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, mixing paint in coffee cups because I could not afford proper supplies." Andrew smiled. "That struggling artist is part of who you are, but this is your reality now." He gestured toward a discreet plaque near the entrance. "Have you seen this yet?" I moved closer to read the small engraved text, "Exhibition Management and Artist Representation by Adams Art Management." "Your new company?" I asked, surprised. Andrew nodded. "Julian suggested it. Apparently, my combination of business experience and first-hand knowledge of how artists can be exploited makes me uniquely qualified. I already have 3 clients besides you, all emerging artists," Julian identified as promising. The irony was not lost on me. My brother, who had once dismissed my art as a hobby, was now building a career around supporting artists like me. His mistake with my paintings had become the catalyst for his own professional reinvention. "Does this mean you are officially my manager now?" I asked. "Only if you want me to be. Julian would remain your primary representative, but I would handle the day-to-day business operations, contract negotiations, logistics, all the stuff you hate dealing with." It was a tempting offer. Despite my success, the business aspects of the art world still felt foreign to me. And Andrew had proven his commitment to my career, working tirelessly over the past year, to help arrange this exhibition and negotiate favorable terms with galleries and collectors. Let me think about it, I said, not quite ready to formalize our new professional relationship on this already momentous day. The exhibition opening exceeded even Catherine's ambitious expectations. Art critics, collectors, gallery owners, and celebrities filled the space, creating a buzz that spilled out onto the street. Julian Reynolds moved through the crowd like a conductor, introducing me to key figures and subtly directing attention to specific works. Fractured Memories No. 3 on loan from Eleanor Harrington's collection drew particular interest its auction price, making it something of a celebrity in its own right. Beside it hung a small plaque recounting its journey from my studio to Andrew's storage room to Blackstone to Christie's and finally to this exhibition, transforming a potential disaster into part of my artistic narrative. Richard Cohen attended the opening, one of the few Blackstone associates invited. Since returning my paintings, he had severed ties with the company and returned to his own artistic practice. "Your story changed things," he told me during a quiet moment. After the media coverage, Blackstone faced so much scrutiny, they had to overhaul their acquisition practices. They actually have formal authentication procedures now requiring proof of ownership before any purchase. It was a small victory against predatory practices, but a meaningful one for artists who might otherwise have faced similar exploitation. Most surprising was the presence of Michael Pearson, who had requested permission to attend. After some deliberation, I had agreed, curious about his motivation. "Congratulations on your success," he said when we eventually crossed paths. "I underestimated you." "You underestimated my work," I corrected him. "Not me." He acknowledged this with a slight nod. In my defense, I recognized its value before most of the art world did. "And tried to profit from that recognition without compensating the artist," I added. "Business is business," he replied with an unapologetic shrug. "But I will say this. Watching you fight for your work, seeing your brother transform from liability to asset, observing Julian Reynolds stake his reputation on your talent, all of it has been educational. You have more allies than most artists in your position." His observation was accurate. Throughout the crisis, I had discovered the strength of my support network, from Lisa's unwavering belief in my talent to Julian's willingness to invest significant resources in my career to Andrew's determination to correct his mistake. Even Patricia Martinez had reduced her legal fees, seeing our case as an opportunity to establish better protections for artists. As the evening progressed, Julian drew me aside to discuss future plans. "The response exceeds even my expectations," he said, indicating the red dots already marking most pieces as sold. "We need to discuss your next collection and international exhibition opportunities." "I have been experimenting with new techniques," I told him. "Incorporating sustainable materials, exploring the intersection of memory and environmental consciousness." Julian smiled approvingly. "Always evolving. That is what separates lasting artists from flashes in the pan." "Speaking of evolution, have you considered Andrew's proposal? Having him manage the business aspects would free you to focus entirely on creation." "I am leaning toward yes," I admitted. "He has proven himself, and there is something poetic about transforming his greatest mistake into a partnership." "Family dynamics in the art world can be complicated," Julian warned. "But when they work, they can create powerful synergy." By the end of the night, the exhibition was declared a triumph. Every available piece had sold, and Catherine was already discussing a follow-up show the next year. Critics praised my revolutionary textural vocabulary and authentic emotional resonance, validating the artistic vision I had defended so fiercely. In the empty gallery after everyone had left, I found Andrew sitting alone contemplating Fractured Memories No. 3. "I still cannot believe I sold this for $100, he said as I joined him. "Technically, you sold it for $3.2 million with a very inefficient middle step," I pointed out with a smile. He laughed. "True. And now look at us. You, a celebrated artist with sold-out exhibitions. Me, an art manager with a growing client list. All because I made the colossal mistake of selling your paintings. Sometimes our worst mistakes lead to unexpected growth, I reflected. If you had not sold those paintings, I might still be slowly building my career unknown to collectors like Eleanor Harrington or Julian Reynolds. You might still be in your corporate job dismissing art as impractical. Instead, here we are both doing what we love. Andrew considered this. So what you are saying is, I did you a favor? His tone was joking, but with an undercurrent of genuine question. Let us not go that far, I said. But yes, in a strange way, your mistake accelerated both our journeys. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Never sell my artwork without explicit written permission again. Deal, he agreed solemnly, though I doubt anyone would believe they were worthless amateur paintings now. We sat in comfortable silence, the events of the past year settling into their place in our shared history. The brother who had once dismissed my art as a hobby was now its business champion. The paintings that had gathered dust in his storage room were now centerpieces of a celebrated exhibition, and I had evolved from a struggling artist to a recognized name in contemporary art. Life rarely follows the path we expect. Sometimes a devastating text message about paintings sold for $100 each becomes the first line in a story of triumph, reconciliation, and artistic validation. What matters is not the obstacles we encounter, but how we respond to them, what we learn, and who stands beside us as we transform challenges into opportunities. Have you ever had a family member undervalue something important to you? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of artistic validation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need a reminder that sometimes our greatest setbacks become the foundation for our most significant breakthroughs. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey, and remember to always believe in the value of your unique contributions to the world even when others do not yet see it.